Thank you, Zerlina. Thank you for having me. Happy Halloween.
Thank you very much. Happy Halloween to you as well. So first, talk to us about the use of partisan poll watchers. Are they something that concern you overall heading into Tuesday's elections? And what should voters know about their rights should they actually come into contact with one of these poll watchers?
Well, first of all, I think it's really clear that poll watchers in this way and inspired and encouraged by the Republican Party the way they have been is another form of intentional voter intimidation. And what voters need to know is that they have a right to cast their ballots. They have a right to cast their ballots confidentially. They are not to be questioned about for whom they voted or why, certainly in the polling place, and they should be firm about that. Look, you step back, Zerlina, it's clear to me, and I think to most people, indeed to most Republicans, that at the national level, the party is out of ideas. And so they've concluded that the only way they can win is by cheating. And that's what all these voter suppression laws are about. That's what the hyper-partisan gerrymandering that will happen in redistricting in many locations is about. It's what all the money flooding into politics has been about, and it's what the big lie is about. And so I think there need to be two responses to this. One is we do need action by the Congress, and I hope we get a chance to talk about that. But we also need to be organizing through local groups at the grassroots, encouraging voters to stay engaged, not just in time for elections. And that's something else we're working on.
In terms of the piece about cheating, I think it's an interesting term to use in this context. Do you think voters see these voter suppression laws, the partisan gerrymandering in the redistricting process? Do you think voters understand that that is Republicans trying to subvert what they want through their votes?
Well, I hope so. I certainly hope so. And I'm doing what I can to make sure that people understand that. But it's not so subtle. I think once upon a time it might have been. But this notion that, you know, your access to a ballot that is easily accessible, that you can cast easily and conveniently, and that you get to choose your representative rather than having your representative choose you, which is what the hyperpartisan redistricting is about, I think it's becoming more and more clear. And this is not just something that that Republicans have been driving in the last little while. It's over decades of bit by bit chipping away at it, right up to and including attacking a core feature of the Voting Rights Act with and winning a conservative majority in the Supreme Court, basically to gut that act. These are the very things that back in the days when I was head of the Civil Rights Division in the Justice Department, I and my colleagues were working on, trying to make sure that these games wouldn't be played. And what you saw in the Supreme Court was a decision authored, I think, quite naively. And I'm sorry if that sounds disrespectful. I am respectful of the court, but naively implying that, you know, everything was changed since the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965, and since it was reauthorized twice since then, everything's changed. We've moved past all that, and not 15 minutes after that decision did states start to do exactly what you reported on earlier, passing all of these efforts to make it harder for people to vote, and frankly, make it possible for Republican partisans to overturn the will of the voters if they don't like the outcome.
So with that Supreme Court gutting of the Voting Rights Act and the conservative movement towards voter suppression on the state level, what should the federal government do to protect voting rights of the communities that are the most vulnerable? I think you should not, the point should not be lost that the very communities that are impacted by these state laws are those communities of color with growing demographics in many states that have been historically red. So what does the Congress need to do?
Well, the Congress has its role and the people have theirs. So first of all, I think the Congress, as you and I'm sure your viewers know, have a couple of proposals in front of them right now. The John Lewis Voting Restoration Act is one. There's also a bill that would end the flood of money into politics, so much of it dark, and curb the hyper-partisan gerrymandering. There was an effort in the Senate that Senator Manchin led to try to get a compromise bill. It was a pretty good bill, actually, and it was brought up for a procedural vote just recently. And after all that work to bring all those Republicans along with the 50 Democrats, it failed to move forward. And I think that ought to teach us all something, not least of which Senator Manchin, who is a friend of mine and whom I respect. And that is, we need changes in the Senate rules, and the filibuster in particular, when democracy itself is under question.
Well, we'll see if he is listening to your friend, to his friend. Former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, thank you so much for being here tonight and helping us talk through some of these really important issues. Please stay safe. And also be sure to tune in for our special election night coverage on Tuesday night. Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid, Nicole Wallace, and Steve Kornacki will break down live results as they come in. It all begins again on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, here only on MSNBC. Next, could Biden's legislative stalemates at home derail his mission to convince world leaders that America will keep its promise to fight climate change? New reporting from NBC's Josh Lederman in Scotland ahead.